Hello, welcome to my studio. This is your instructor Linda, and in this video we are going to be learning general tips and tricks for using your fine point and ultra fine point quilling needle, with a particular emphasis on the ultra fine point quilling needle. The fine point quilling needle and the ultra fine point quilling needle are designed in an interchangeable vise pin system which allows you to change out the heads or the tips of the needles should they get damaged or broken. I will not, however, be showing you how to change out the needle heads in this particular video. If you wish to learn how to do that, please watch my video on basic quilling needles. Now before we start, I would like to make a general comment on the importance of getting a good quality quilling needle. The basic quilling needle will be the most used and most important quilling tool in your quilling arsenal, so spending a little bit more money getting a good quality quilling needle is well worth the while. Let me give you an example. This particular quilling needle was donated to me by a student in my class. She had picked up 10 of these quilling needles on Amazon for $5. Prior to coming to my class, she had started quilling a little bit on her own, but no matter what she did, her quilling elements were always lopsided, mishappened, or otherwise not perfect. On the recommendation of a friend, she had joined me in my quilling class, hoping I could show her what she did wrong with her technique. As it turned out, she did nothing wrong with her technique at all. The reason why she was getting skewed or mishappened quilling elements was because of her tool, her needle. Now if you take a look at this needle, you will notice that the tip of the needle is not on straight. It is actually sideways. When you have a needle that is misaligned, damaged, stretched, or off-center, it doesn't matter how good you are at quilling, chances are you will get an offset or mishappened quilling element. So, get a good quality quilling needle. So enough of that, let's go over how the different types of needles are designed. The basic quilling needle, the ultra-fine quilling needle, and the fine point quilling needle are designed slightly differently. And if we have an understanding of what the designs are, we can also understand what their advantages and what their limitations are. So let's start with the most basic standard quilling needle and its design. The standard quilling needle is designed very simply. It's essentially a round, cylindrical metal piece which has a slit cut through the middle, which holds the paper. So if we were to look at the paper in cross-section, it would be like this. There's several advantages to this design. One of the advantages is that it is very easy to manufacture, and as such, has a lower cost. The second advantage is because of the larger diameter of the needle, it is easier to catch and to hold the paper so that it doesn't slip out during quilling. This needle is very suitable for a beginner and is very user-friendly. Now, if you're a more advanced user or wish to sell your projects, then you might want to consider getting the fine point or ultra fine point needle. The reason being is that the holes left in the middle of a specific type of quilling element called a tight coil is determined by the diameter of the needle that you use. The larger the diameter, the larger the hole that's left over. So in a project, if you don't want the holes to show up and you want it to look a little bit more clean and tidy, you would probably want to use the fine point or the ultra fine point needle. So let's compare the difference in the design between the fine point and the ultra fine point needle, starting with the fine point needle. The fine point needle is built with a tapered design, where the needle is thicker on the bottom and thinner as you get towards the top. This particular fine point needle has a 0.4 millimeter tip on each of its prongs at the top, meaning that the total diameter of the prongs at the top of the needle is less than 1 millimeter, or 0.8. The base of the needle is about 1 to 1.2 millimeters, depending on the needle that you get. This particular one is 1 millimeter. The thicker base on the fine-tipped quilling needle, or the tapered design, allows it to catch the paper on this area here, where the needle is a little bit thicker. What does that mean? It's also user-friendly. You use it exactly like a regular needle. You put it into the slot and roll. It does not require you to leave any tail or to do anything in particular. However, the disadvantage of the fine-tipped needle is although one side of the element you can get a very small hole, where the top is more specifically, the other side of your quilling element will have a large hole. So let me show you the quilling element. So let's see if I can get this focused. Here we go. So here is the quilling element on the top side where the hole is smaller. If I flip this over, the size of the hole on the bottom of the quilling element is actually bigger than on the top. So the disadvantage of a tapered design is that you will get a big hole on one side of the quilling element. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a project that you're going to be gluing down, you simply glue down and hide the larger hole. If, however, you're making something that will hang up like an ornament, like a snowflake, for example, there will be differences between one side and the other side of the snowflake. So you can get around that by using the ultrafine quilling needle. So let's take a look at the design of the ultrafine quilling needle. The ultrafine quilling needle is designed like a prong, so the needle is pretty much straight, not tapered. The gap between the two very small prongs, in this case the 0.3 millimeter prongs, is about 0.5 millimeter. Now, they design it with a gap that big so that it is big enough for you to put the paper in between the needle without great difficulty. However, that also means that the way it catches the paper is very different from the tapered needle or the slit type needle. In the ultrafine point needle, the prong, if I was to show it on my hand, let's flip it this way, is like this. Now, if you put the paper into the prong and you just wrap it loosely around like that, then you'll end up with actually a very big hole in your quilling element, and you're not taking advantage of the very, very small diameters of the prong. So what you have to do is you have to squeeze the two prongs together and pull the paper so that it is tight up against your needle. And that's the best way to get a small hole. What does that mean? That means that likely when you're using the needle, you are going to have to leave a little bit of a tail at the end of your needle. If the needle that you use can catch the paper without leaving a tail, meaning that you can use it like a standard needle, then chances are you do not have an ultrafine tipped needle. All ultrafine tipped needles require a little bit of a tail at the end of your paper in order to catch. So if I was to show you the positioning of the needle relative to the paper in an ultrafine needle, you will notice that the position of the needle is actually below or at the same level as the top of the paper. In the ultrafine needle, you never want to put the level of the paper you never want to put the level of the paper below the top of your needle. The reason why is if you push your paper to the base of the needle so that there is a little bit of the needle hanging over top, then you can't actually get a very small hole because of the way the needle is designed. And with that little bit hanging there, you're apt to jab yourself as well. So remember, when you're using the ultrafine needle, that the paper should always be at the same level or slightly above the tip of your needle. So once you've got your needle in and you've left a little bit of a tail, and the tail can be anywhere from about 2 to 3 millimeters for it to catch comfortably. However, if it doesn't interfere with your project, you may choose to leave a longer tail. It is up to you. You do need at least enough of a tail to wrap 3/4 the way around the needle in order for it to catch. So once you have the needle in, check to make sure that the needle level is below the top of the paper and then you can fold your paper over. So fold your paper over like that. Once you folded your paper over, then squeeze with your thumb and forefinger and roll. This kind of motion, right? So once you've rolled and the paper has caught on the needle and is not moving, you can roll the needle as normal. So I'm going to finish rolling this, and there we go. Let's glue it down. Okay, so here we have the tight coil done with the ultrafine needle. I'm going to pat it down to make it level. Okay, so here is the quilling element with a small hole. Is this in focus? There we go. With a small hole. Okay. Now I'm going to teach you an alternative way as well to use the ultrafine needle, and that is to place the paper in such a way that this prong-shaped needle will act more like a taper tip needle. Now what do I mean by that? When we're putting the paper into the prong, what we want to do is we want to deliberately leave a lot of space above the needle and fold it over, like so. So I'm an overhander, so I'm going to flip the needle the other way so I can do it the way I'm most familiar with. And with the needle being only halfway through the paper, when you squeeze and roll, you will end up with a hole that is almost non-existent. So let me roll this. Okay, so by doing that, let's focus and see. Can we see that? Okay. Ah, I think there it is. Okay, so take a look at that hole. Almost not there. Now, if we flip it the other way, the hole on the other side is quite visible. It's bigger. That's because we've tapered it when we were rolling it. So this is a good tip and trick if you want the hole to be pretty much gone, and it doesn't matter to you that the other side is larger because you're going to be placing it down on a project where it's hidden anyways. This is a great way to quill with a very small hole on the side. Okay, so that's the basic techniques on using the fine point and ultrafine point needle. I do hope that it was a useful video and that you will join me in my next video. Thank you.